spoiler section starting now. Connor, we need to just talk about that ending first, right? Let's just dive in. What happened there? One, and like, how did you interpret it? Did it happen for real? Like, what do you think?
I Oh my God, where to really begin with this? Because I'll give. We should probably not discuss the ending until a little later on.
Okay. Where do
Because
you want to take it first? The convo. Where do you want to take it?
first of all, he as soon the very one of the first moment of the film where Beau is born, and you can already like get a sense of the very troubled relationship he has with his mother, played by Patti LuPone, who's it doesn't show up on screen until much later, but is probably just as good as
She's
Phoenix
dynamite,
in
dude.
this
She's
part.
dynamite in the movie.
Oscar worthy in it, even though I know it's going to get nothing. She's fantastic in it. But as soon as you see that opening and like you hear like Beau get accidentally getting dropped, she's like, oh my God, he's not crying anymore? Is he still alive?" And you can already sense that like at first like it kind of seems normal, but then like you already get a sense of like an overprotective parent right
Yeah,
away, and
this
that ends up
movie,
fueling a
Connor,
lot
could
of
have
Beau's paranoia.
this movie could have been called "Mommy Issues," the movie, because
Yep.
this is
Also could have been called
yeah.
also could have been called Hereditary.
It also could have been called "Ari Aster likes to go into family dramas?" Question mark. Definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, the mother
Relationship
the mother
problems, the
component in
filmmaker.
this movie, that's when it started to finally click into place, the pieces. Because for the first hour I did not know what the hell like we were
Yeah, it's
doing.
like
But in a good
what?
way. I have to say, this movie, I did not know where it was gonna go next by each scene.
No, this is not even if you don't like the movie, you can't exactly call it predictable.
Not at all. Let's go into that New York apartment sequence in the beginning, because
Because
it's
for our,
insane, dude.
first of all, I want to mention before that, I want to mention the very first interaction that Beau has with another person, which is with his therapist, played very well by Steve McKinley Henderson, who later becomes a villainous presence. I don't know. In a few minutes later, he already becomes a villainous presence. He writes down as Beau is talking to him, he writes down the word guilty, which at first like you could already think like, okay, he's talking Beau is talking to him, he's talking about how he's feeling guilty about his relationship with his mother, but then later on you finally understand that it like means guilty as in he's feeling guilty, but also that he has to plead guilty
Like
later on.
literally
We'll
plead guilty.
dive
Yeah.
later on. We'll dive into that. When he goes into his apartment, you already see all this random, seemingly random, but also this is another reason why I think I need to view this film a second time, because there are so many like little details,
Yeah,
like right off
do
the
you
bat.
remember like in the
All
beginning?
this crazy graffiti on the wall
Yeah,
with
he has some
obscene
really interesting
language.
he has some really interesting set design in his apartment, including the fact that it doesn't look like a shithole, which I was like expecting. It actually looks
Like
okay.
at first,
Yeah.
except for the graffiti.
Yeah, and then people know because they're in the spoiler section. People just storm his place because he props the door
Yeah,
open with a phone book, right?
including Birthday Boy Stabman, iconic character who stabs him, and then oh my God, it's almost like he becomes the Birthday Boy Stabman, but not a killer, because he like after oh my God, this is one of the funniest and most bizarre moments of the movie when he we don't know if it's a vision or not, because we see right after Beau calls his mom, like regretfully, he in already a very like cringe-worthy moment, his therapist shows up on his bathroom ceiling and jumps into his bathtub, and then Beau ends up running around naked, getting stabbed by the birthday stab man.
Yeah, dude. Remember when he's
As
drowning too in
everyone's
the bathtub because the
oh
guy
my
and him are
god,
having a tussle? And also, there's a spider that was on the dude's face that lands in the bathtub, so that becomes a whole thing too.
yeah,
It's an awesome scene. It's an awesome scene.
yeah. And like of course he gets into the accident, and then he ends up at this military family, this like super like the kind of bourgeois upper middle class, like at first seemingly idyllic home. And of course the parents are Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane, both of whom are also excellent.
Really, really good supporting
he
cast
he
here.
ends up in their troubled daughter's room, as and with a device on his foot, after he's been, for the rest of the movie, he has Beau has all these injuries on
Yeah,
his
because
like face
Amy
and
Ryan
body.
hit him really, really hard with her truck in the middle of
Yeah,
his scene where he's running naked.
yeah.
Really
And then he's
liked.
like,
I actually really
"Oh my
liked
god."
that part, Connor, when Amy Ryan or Amy, yeah,
Amy
Amy
Ryan.
Ryan's character, she explains to Beau like what happened, and then it cuts to the stab guy like stabbing Beau in the hand like 10 times. I thought it was a really, really comedic way to cut the scene.
Yeah. What? And like at first you like when you first see them, they're like, oh, they're on surface level they like seem like this at first like kindly like friendly military very religious family. Their kid ends up dying in the war, so that's like basically their like claim to fame. But to Beau and to the audience, they're like just as fucked up as anyone else, because
They're so
they
messed
have
up, dude.
they have because this was also a theme that was kind of expanded upon from Ari Aster's short film, the thing about the Johnsons, because that deconstruction of that idyllic suburbia basically turned into this like again a malformed nightmare with a disturbed adopted son who they're keeping captive the whole time, and ends up chasing Beau,
That
as well
actor
as
too, Connor. That
yeah,
actor's in Inglorious Bastards in the beginning.
really.
He's the farm owner in the beginning. Do you remember?
Oh wow.
Yeah. So he's come a
Yeah.
long way. I will say this, dude. The crazy like siblings Beau had to deal with were pretty freaking interesting.
Yeah, the
Besides him,
daughter
the
too.
daughter, dude. Oh my, dude. That scene where
I
she
want
drank the
drink
paint,
paint with me,
dude.
and
That was
then
insane.
and then Amy Ryan accuses him of murdering her.
She just starts
At first it's
chugging
so
the paint.
darkly comedic.
She starts chugging the paint, and Beau's like screaming, and it cuts to Amy Ryan like going into the room and just seeing
You
her
murdered
daughter.
her.
Her daughter's dead from drinking paint. It's wild.
In fact, there was actually when fun fact in that interview with Nathan Lane, he actually mentions that there was actually a line cut from the film when they were complaining about the daughter, and like um because she's always screaming at Beau and like has and hates him. She's again like a also like a borderline sociopath. She Nathan Lane said this line, which was cut from the film because it was so mean. He was like, "The wrong kid died."
Whoa. Yeah, that is a dagger blow, if I have to say.
Yeah,
She also has a very iconic scene, I must say, where she makes Beau take some. I don't know if it's weed mixed with something else, but definitely
yeah.
forces
In the
Beau to
car,
smoke
where she
something.
kidnaps him in the car, and they're the family's like all like, "Oh, you can go home anytime they want," but deep down they want to keep him there.
Yeah,
They
he
will.
takes a fat hit too. I remember. Cuz
Yeah,
remember at first he does a little one. She's like, "Actually do it for real. And if you don't, I will accuse you of like sexually assaulting us." And I was like, "Oh my god. That's a way to get somebody to do something." But
yeah.
and then he proceeds to take like the fattest
But
hit from the blunt that
once
you can
again,
imagine.
Beau cannot catch a break.
This
The
entire
portion map
movie,
cannot catch a
I
break.
actually don't think there's a single break in this entire movie for Beau.
No, nothing good happens to
Because
him.
then right after that,
Really.
right after like daughter makes him smoke and then drinks a ton of paint and dies, he gets lost in a forest essentially, and starts watching a play that's being commenced by a theater group in the forest. Do you want to
In the
explain?
forest too. But before that, we get some flashbacks between him and his mother
True, that's very important.
and younger Beau, which by the way, ingenious piece of marketing. Because everyone thought because the very first poster of the film was of younger Beau, and everyone assumed, oh, it thought it was AI generated or de-aging. Turns out that's a different actor playing young teenage Beau, and
Looks
he
exactly
likes.
like Joaquin, the face
Yeah,
shape
he
and
looks.
everything.
It's so uncanny and kind of creepy that he looks so much like Joaquin, and he. We see him first in this flashback sequence where he is with his mother on a cruise ship, and then meets his childhood crush, and and he's still like kind of being a little controlled by his mother in a respect,
100%.
and his crush, her character, who her photo by the way is seen early on in the film, is interesting. She
Very interesting.
she's
She comes
she
into play
calls
later, right?
she calls her mother, yeah, she calls her mother a cunt, and she's like, oh, somebody died in the pool.
So
It's in
nonchalant.
another
So
very,
nonchalant.
although when that happens, she does like announce it to everyone on the ship and like kind of alert everyone to it. So at least there's that, but like she's definitely a much. I think what attracts Beau to her is that she's a much less repressed character because she's like willing to like yell and cuss and like say things and like call chocolate liquid shit. And
She's got a little bit of quirkiness to her, right? Clearly. And Beau is
yeah, because
that
whereas
typical
Beau is,
kid that's so introverted that can't really say much, right?
yeah, because he's so quiet, and that like kind of almost like he almost like wants to be with someone who's like more of an insider, while also still having almost a perverse relationship with his mother too, like
Almost
implied
yeah, there's this
Oedipal.
term. Yeah, I think it's actually for if with when it comes to mothers, it's called the Electra complex. Because
Mm.
father, it's usually Oedipal is when it comes with the father, right? I'm pretty sure. But
It's usually, I think Oedipus is usually with the
it's with the
mother.
mother. I could be wrong here, but yeah, he definitely has some incestuous kind of energy with the mother, I would say.
Yeah, because he's so the mother and Mona and Beau are so particularly attached. And might add, the mother, Mona Wasserman, um, is like a multi-billionaire, like super like venture
Well, what
capitalist.
is the company like? Because I
MW.
understood it as a pharmaceutical mixed with like we also sell microwavable meals.
But they basically, it seems like they control almost everything. Everything Beau buys is basically from her. She's Amazon, Google,
I think
Apple.
she's very closely aligned with Amazon, the company.
Yeah, cause and that like even alienates Beau further. And might I add, the MW logo is both at the beginning of the trailers, at the beginning of the film, and it was advertised like it was this actual production company that made the movie. And in one of the most ingenious pieces of marketing for a movie I've ever seen, they even made a fake website for it
I didn't know that.
that
Wow.
basically said like that basically like had clouds in the background and a very like overly jaunty slogan, and it was just like wait until April, and guess what, it was the release date of the movie.
Damn. Yeah, the marketing was pretty good, I must say. Like I'm not going to think that this movie does bad because the marketing was bad. I think it's more because of the subject matter that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and because it's such a heady movie.
Yeah, we need to go into the forest sequence of this film because in my
Yeah,
personal opinion, Connor, when it does that part where he starts living his entire life and having like three sons and they get
and like
separated.
almost having this like I basically having like this is almost like the way he thinks he should be going. Like
That
this is
part
like the
that part
ideal
in
life.
particular when it mixes animation with real life, video, it
It's a
was
lengthy
it was my favorite
sequence.
part of the movie by far.
It is
I,
beautiful.
I
It is
I
a
was
feast for the
watching it and I was
eyes.
unsure how he pulled it off. Like while I was watching it, I'm like, oh my god, because it does
It was
have it does
breathtaking
have
to watch in
influences
theaters.
from I don't know if you've ever seen Dreams by Akira Kurosawa,
By Kurosawa.
which is a movie Scorsese actually makes a cameo in as Vincent Van
I
Gogh.
know. Yeah.
Very similar, the color and the set design for Dreams, I would say.
Yeah, it's such a surreal sequence, and might I add, in a Criterion Closet video, he cited Ari Aster actually cited I forget what the name of the film was, but it was I think a I think it was a French film that had a similar like combination of live action and animation that and like picturesque looking visuals that influenced like almost I think completely ripped that scene in Beau is Afraid.
Yeah, it's possible, dude. Because I don't know how did he pull it off, Connor. It was so impressive. Because to put it into context, the setting changes as Joaquin walks, right, in a single take. So you're clearly gonna have to use some sort of blue or green screen. But my God, it looked great.
Yeah,
The
it
visual
didn't.
effects artists need some props here
It
because they did
almost it
awesome.
looked like in all honesty, it almost looked like something out of Powell and Pressburger movie from the 40s, like with that big Technicolor look, like the red shoes, Matter of Life and Death, Tales of Hoffman, that where the effects are so obvious that it actually adds to the surreal experience of it, and it was really something to experience in the theater.
And what
And
was interesting too is the person narrating the whole thing. I interpreted it as it was his mother, and she was
yeah,
just not like physically embodying him. Like I don't know even because I don't know if she was physically there at the theater, but it was definitely his mom narrating like what would have been.
she's the mother, even though we don't see her face until like we see the flashback scenes, which is a different actress than Patty LuPone. The younger mother, we she's still she's essentially the presence throughout this film, and that
Main
like
antagonist for
goes to
sure.
show her that goes to show her like almost like Norma Bates like omnipresence in his life, because like he's almost like everything is that he does is to please her essentially.
Yeah, and oh my God, he has trouble doing that to say the very least.
And even in the forest, again, Beau can't catch a break. An assassin with a machine gun, like straight up, just tries to kill him.
Yeah, and doesn't that scene gets insane. So the play finishes, right,
It's
Connor? And there's
fun
a whole chase sequence with him and like an
on
assassin
foot.
that has a bulletproof vest and like he throws knives at him and stuff. It goes crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and we've already, and this is already like almost 2/3 of the way through too.
Yeah.
So
So
this
so
is
then after that, he gets knocked out because I think a grenade kind of like gets close to him and he falls unconscious, right? And he
yeah
wakes up
again.
and he wakes up, right? And he's like, I do not know what just happened. And what do you want to explain? Do you want to explain to the audience what happens, Connor?
Yeah, eventually he going to his ends up going to a house where she is seen earlier on in the film, but as Parker Posey, but as his childhood sweetheart. He previously sees her in a newscast, and that causes him to vomit on the daughter's computer to her chagrin, and he sees her at this giant house, and he finds out that she worked for his mother, Mona Wasserman, because he sees Well, actually, I might, for context, this is supposed to be the funeral home, actually, for Beau's mother,
Yeah,
because
because Beau's mom, like, she essentially staged her death to have a chandelier cut off her head, is what we're trying to
yes,
buy.
early on, and then that's what ends up sending Beau into a frenzy, essentially.
Yeah, and then so he goes to the funeral. Everyone's like, just doing funeral things.
Everyone just left,
Yeah, and he
pretty
he
much,
kind of
and
just sits
he
there like alone
didn't
for
get
most of
there.
it, right?
And then he like kind of looks around the house as her favorite song plays, and then he sees his childhood sweetheart, Elaine, her picture now she's older, now she's Parker Posey, in a photo of a collage of all the workers for her company. And then she comes
Which
back to the
might
house,
I
and that's when
add
they
has
rekindle.
the Amy Ryan and the Nathan Lane character in those photos. I remember seeing them.
Yeah, essentially all this is when we start to realize that all of these characters end up being like essentially the mother's puppets
Hmm.
that she kind of like exploits to work for her brand and like in Beau's life.
Yeah, and we should probably mention, but one of the riskiest sex scenes I've seen in a minute in cinema
Yeah,
with
and
Parker Posey.
because the thing is, for context, you've already seen the film, so you know this. His mother constantly basically tells him like, "I'm so sorry for what your daddy put on to like passed on to you," and it turns out to be that if he, this is part of why he's so sexually repressed now, is that he now assumes that if you ejaculate, you die, because that's the way she tells him his dad died.
Dude,
And
Joaquin, dude,
essentially,
yeah.
and this is why, like, when Parker Posey comes on to him, when Elaine comes on to him, she, after they rekindle, she like kind of tries to assure him that he's not going to die, and Beau is terrified throughout the scene. And when and then when he finally climaxes, he's like, oh, for a moment, and then he realizes that it was actually passed on to her. She ends up dying after ejaculation, and but the way this is shot, though, it's kind of, it's horrifying, but also so fucking
I know,
hilarious,
because
dude.
it's
She
a, it's a
just like
long scene, Connor. It's like a
she
three
just
minute sex scene, right?
yeah, and she just like and when she dies, she's just like staying still, and then when these other like little puppets of hers like kind of have to these carry out the body, it's basically like it's still as a statue.
Yeah,
And
no,
it's
she.
like creates such a trippy visual where they're just like you carry out the body, and that's just it's like still in rigor mortis.
Yeah, you can actually see too if you look closely
It's
that Parker
so
Posey's
bizarre.
eyes after she dies in the movie is the same as the young girl that drank the paint earlier. The same kind of look
Oh
of death,
wow.
which probably means like the
Yeah.
mother is responsible for multiple deaths in the movie, right?
Yeah, because like given that she is a this is goes to into Ari Aster's like pretty biting critique of like corporate capitalism here, that like she essentially has like these deaths on the mother has these deaths on her hands along with baby the father.
Yeah, and also too, like I know we've said this before, but I knew like once the sex scene was going on, I could not tell like Parker Posey was gonna die during the climax. Like I was just
I thought
so thrown into the ringer for that
I thought
scene.
like Beau was probably gonna stop it after, but like right before he comes,
Ah,
because
ah.
because he's so scared that he's gonna die. He's going to basically fuck to death,
Yeah.
as his mother has told him, and then it turns out to essentially be the opposite. Um, and of course his mother does show up at the house unannounced, and like knows that all this had happened, unbeknownst to Beau. Like she is essentially now she's the master of it all, and then it.
Well, she does this too, which is like something we gotta dive into because it has some trippy imagery. Is she tosses him in the attic? Remember after killing Parker Posey's character,
Yeah, and the thing is, there is a this is actually foreshadowed early on in the film. There's a flashback scene beforehand where we see we see what looks to be at first looks to be Beau's point of view, because at first I thought like, okay, this is some like long lost like tormented brother that like the mother like abused and locked in the attic for the rest of his life, that like basically like we don't talk about this guy anymore. And but then what this plot twist that happens, it turns out it might have been Beau.
Yeah, I was having trouble understanding that part completely because when he gets locked in the attic too, he sees I kid you not, a literal penis
Giant
with
penis with a
giant
face
teeth
on it.
and with spider like arms. As yeah, it's crazy, guys. I don't know.
It's trippy. I think that's supposed to be a allegory about the father too, because like all he knows about the dad is the penis. All he knows
Definitely.
about it is that he died while ejaculating,
And also
and
like
then the
clear
assassin comes back to stab it,
clear
basically
yeah.
like as another like metaphor for repression.
I was going to say that it's like such a clear it's so clear the influence of Charlie Kaufman and even Michael Gondry in that particular
Like
scene.
I definitely like saw a bit of John Malkovich in that one.
Yeah, because it gets insane. Because as we mentioned earlier, he has like an assassin trying to attack him. He ends up barreling through the window.
That's that's the reason why the device is on him too, as a tracker.
Yeah, and then the assassin comes in but gets killed by the penis because the penis like stabs
Yeah,
him with a spider leg or something. Yeah, that scene is insane, dude. I was like, what is going
yeah,
on? But
and
I'm liking it.
might I add, in the scene, Beau sees himself as an old man, which was an image that had been seen earlier on in the film during the scene in the forest. Fantastic age makeup on Joaquin Phoenix, by the way.
This should get
That
nominated for
he has like
makeup.
a,
If this doesn't get
I know it
nominated,
won't, but
I don't know what to say.
but he has like this. He's now like basically like the Santa Claus mixed with a member of ZZ Top. He has this giant beard on him with like these baggy eyes, and he's elderly, and that's the image that you see on the poster as well. Because like this, he basically like sees himself as like what has basically happened the rest of his life. And the way I interpreted, I don't know if you interpreted it this way, but I think Beau, I think his last moments were in the attic. I think this might have been, I think this might have been the fantasy that he had, this everything that transpired, like right, like as he lay dying, as his mother locked him in,
I actually
which is
didn't.
pretty
I didn't think
terrifying.
about that, but now that you mention it, that could be a reason why he sees an older version of himself locked in there, right? Because
Yeah,
maybe he never got out and he just had to stay there for the rest of his
yeah, I
life.
don't think he got out ever,
Could be.
really.
I'm of the interpretation that he did get out and then proceeds to kill his mom, right?
Yeah, and although the thing is, when he like confronts once he confronts her, it's he doesn't really kill her. He like tries to strangle her at first, and then crashes her into a piece of glass, but then he stops, and then he starts looking zombie like, and he's like, with this, with another kind of funny image of the film where he just
Yeah.
like looks like the whole time, as even, and then once he stops and like walks out. I don't know if you noticed that, but he still like keeps that ghastly expression on his face, like as he's walking out
Definitely.
and like
Yeah.
escaping.
That's why I was like, what parts of that scene were real and what didn't happen? Because I came out of that scene thinking he killed his mom, right? But then
Yeah,
we get the
it
next
almost,
scene though, right? Oh my god.
yeah, when he at first already an absolutely hypnotic moment of Beau like getting on a boat and swimming away, and then the lights come on and he's in a stadium. Like basically like the
yeah.
SeaWorld Stadium.
This
What
part
were you gonna say?
reminded me of Truman Show for sure. Like it was a
Yeah,
clear,
definitely
yeah.
with him like escaping the situation by like going on water and finding a dead end, and he gets quite literally put on a mass trial. And might I add, this also reminded me a lot of, I don't know if you've seen or listened to Pink Floyd's The Wall, but this is like one of the last tracks on the album is The Trial, and it's essentially like all the people in his life like trying to find him guilty, and we see like hear all the sound bites of like the mother, the unfaithful wife, the school teacher, manager, like everybody. And this scene is like kind of play in Beau's Afraid kind of plays out similarly because we obviously have his mother on the prosecution side along with her attorney played by Richard Kind, and on the other side we see the ill-fated defense attorneys
From a distance, right? They're like trying to defend
yeah,
Beau
and then he gets like and then like right as that happens, right as he's about to make his statement, gets knocked down and like falls on a rock midsummer style.
Yeah.
And then Beau's like, oh.
So
And
yeah, I want to ask this, Connor,
the
about
scene
that.
is
Yeah,
something.
about that last scene. Like, do you think he actually died then, or like
I
what happened
think
there?
I don't. I think it's all an allegory for him, like about his own guilt, kind of overcoming him, and kind of as devouring his existence essentially. Because again, like as we see the defense getting literally and figuratively killed, he like no long because he still has like so much of his mother in him. He can't. He's like now quite literally like in a corner,
Yeah, and
and then he drowns.
I personally,
He's getting drowned in guilt, as in the
yeah,
water.
yeah, that's why like part of the reason I didn't take it literally, like besides the fact that there's this huge stadium that all of a sudden surrounded
Yeah,
him in the middle of the
and with
ocean.
a crowd too. I think that could also symbolize a lot of Mona Wasserman's customers, given that like they're making a show out of this, a
Yeah.
media spectacle.
Yeah, I don't.
That
That's why I'm like, I do think the mom is dead. Like, I don't think she's alive there, doing a whole like full blown trial on Beau. Like, where I guess his punishment is he gets blown up and drowned, like in a weird way, where the boat is kind of upside down.
upside down, and that is the whole end credit sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the more memorable credit sequences I've seen in a while
Because
too.
as the audience that is watching Beau's trial leaves, so do
The
the audience of the
audience,
movie
the
theater.
audience in the theater leaves. I stay after the damn credits. I want to see who did this. Come on,
Yeah, I stayed too just to see
not me.
like is it literally just
See
gonna be
what
this boat
happens.
like chilling in the water here, and it was.
And
So
it was as like the star written and directed by Ari Aster, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Like we're
it's a
we're
very memorable
showing
last
up.
shot too. Like I remember that shot like exactly how it was framed and stuff. So it was
Yeah,
effective in some sort of way.
yeah,
I know
and
that's the part though. A lot of people are gonna either go with it or just be like, what was that? That's the
yeah
part I think that's gonna
that is
divide the
certain.
audiences.
Yeah, yeah, because it is such a I that's like the moment where I like found out that I was like really speechless by the end of this. Like I don't I like need a few days to fully take this one in because it was just such a trip, and it was an experience of of a lot of it was such a dense and like worth analyzing movie that I hadn't seen like in a long time, really. Like
Yeah, I
I
haven't
think
seen a movie
this
like
one was
this,
going to
dude.
age well.
Yeah.
This one was going to age well. Like even if it's polarizing now, I feel like this is going to become like discussed a lot. And
If
also
any of his movies were to become like a cult classic per se, like I think this is the
this I
one.
know this is going to be like a big cult phenomenon, honestly, and like almost a Fight Club-ish discussion on it.
Mhm.
And might I add, the funny thing is, like, I've seen videos of like clips of Ari Aster, Joaquin Phoenix, or Martin Scorsese. Um, Thank you for championing this film, by the way. They like come to the theater for the Q&A, and the credits are still playing with the boat upside down, and it's just like, this is the time where they got to discuss, and the movie's essentially still going.
That's funny. Yeah, they just came in like literally, I guess, in the middle of the ending, if you think about it.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. Well, that about wraps it
This
up for like our
What did
spoiler
you
thoughts,
did
right?
yeah, do you have any issues with the film?
You know, like the reason I didn't give it like that 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd,
Yeah,
I will
I
say,
did.
is I walked out of that theater not 100% sure, like if like what I watched I totally understood, and so that might be a thing on
Yeah.
me. It actually is not on the movie. It's just
Yeah, cuz
it's such a dense picture.
it's definitely one, again, multiple viewings are required for this one. I don't think I got everything. I don't know if I even got like everything out of it, honestly, since with just a first viewing. I think this needs this again at least a second or third watch in order to fully like dissect every single
Yeah.
like symbol present
Yeah, so
here.
that's like the thing, the confusion of like, did I get everything? That's where like maybe there's a slight flaw with
I
that,
guess
but
you
like
kind of
how
like
can you
left
not like have that happening in this
you're
like
breaking
sort of
up.
movie? Am I back now?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
just
this
saying it
was
was just it's just one of those. If it's not confusing you, I'd be like, you're one of the smartest people in the world, because how can you get that on a
yeah.
first
I
try?
was like I was like not always I feel like I wasn't always like confused by the film as much as I was like kind of trying to like piece everything together more or less like a puzzle. And I for surprisingly like nobody in no I didn't see like walkouts in my theater unless people were going in the bathroom during it. And I it seems like my audience was a little more receptive to it than a lot of others, even though like the people in back of me were just like, what? And a couple people were like, did he die? And like already starting to like figure out their interpretations of it
Mm. Yeah, no,
once the credits
it
ended.
is a very complicated movie, but really, really expertly directed and acted. And might I add, I didn't feel the 3 hour runtime personally.
No, I didn't really. I didn't have like I know like some people like had issues with the runtime. I didn't really,
I
honestly.
thought Tar, which is 15 minutes shorter, felt way longer than this movie.
Yeah, that like felt like an epic too.
Yeah, so if that puts it into context for people, like, do I go to this 3 hour movie? Like, you're not gonna feel the runtime, I assure you.
And plus see it in the theater too because of the way this film was directed and shot and sounded. Like this is an immersive experience without a doubt. I think most of
one of the
Astor's
only
films you
A24
saw in theaters.
IMAX movies you can I
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it was the first film of theirs to get an IMAX screening because again, as part of the big swing that this film was, this this movie it's an epic in every sense of the term.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our thoughts on Beau is Afraid, which was pretty beefy to say the least, but
Yeah, I don't.
it was
I think
worthy of it, dude.
yeah, we could even dedicate another episode to it.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, this was. I think this was my favorite. This is my favorite film of the year so far. Because it,
This is I think it might be my favorite, dude. I think it is. I can definitively say that.
yeah, I mean, I guess like so far, like not much is out, but this is definitely. We obviously haven't seen Oppenheimer, Barbie, or Past Lives, but this is a film where I think the hype paid off because this was one of my most anticipated films of the year, possibly of all time. Because I unfortunately I was not lucky enough to see Hereditary or Midsummer on the big screen. I did see them like a year or two after, like a year after they came out,
Hmm.
and that's when I like really fell in love with both of those, and I this I feel like this film like hit me immediately. I don't know if it's recency bias or just that this was just such a like a such a just a masterful piece of work.
Daring
And
too, so bold for Ari Aster
yeah,
to do
this
this,
I
because I know it was already an idea he had originally, but this idea
th- this would
is a
not
lot.
this would not have gotten made 10 or 15 years ago.
Definitely not.
Hell no.
Speaking
Hell no.
yeah, speaking of Hereditary and Midsummer, let's